Northwest Liberty News, picking the lock on the shackles of tyranny.
Machines are gonna fail, and the system's gonna fail.
The past is past, the future's now.
Don't look at me. I think these people are completely nuts.
Sometimes trouble just follows a man.
There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus.
Can't you stop your lips from flapping for 2 little minutes?
Because I'm white.
I'm a man. I'm sensitive. I need to feel loved. I need to be desired.
I'm rapidly becoming a big underground success in this town.
It's a question of methods. Everybody wants results, but nobody wants to do what they have to do to get them done.
And now, coming to you live from Kalispell, Montana, brought to you by Northwest Liberty News, it's Montana Gazette Radio with your host, James White. Okay, I'm indeed your host, James White. This is Montana Gazette Radio. Thanks so much for joining me here today on this 20th day of July, 2021. And we're excited to get to our guest who's going to be coming on the show with us here briefly. But before we do, I want to mention the Montana Murder Hornet podcast. If you want to check out what's going on there, you can go to patreon.com/Gideon Knox. And J.D. Hall and I, who's going to be my guest here just in a moment, bring him on. We're going to be doing a regular podcast here for VIP members, and you can sign up. And there's some really great deals. We'll probably talk about it when he comes on, but just go to the page here, the Montana Murder Hornet podcast at patreon.com/Gideon Knox, and check out whatever level suits you, whatever you can afford. Go ahead and sign up, and there's a lot of great benefits, especially as you get in the higher ticket range. We're talking like a buffalo hunt, so it's some pretty good stuff. And plus, you get to support conservative media, which, you know, folks, we rely on you for your support because we're not funded by big tech. We're not funded by the military-industrial complex, anything like that. It's all you, the listeners and the viewers. So we do appreciate your support. As I stated, we're going to bring J.D. Hall here on the broadcast. Let me unmute his microphone. J.D. Hall, of course, the publisher of the Montana Daily Gazette and many other fine publications that he can bring up if he'd like to. Let me get you off mute here. JD, there you go. And he is certainly he's a Patriot pastor and certainly an outspoken proponent of freedom and liberty and First Amendment. And recently, speaking of First Amendment, JD, first of all, JD, welcome here to the broadcast. It's always great to have you back on.
Thank you, Jim, and thanks for talking about the Montana Murder Hornet. I'm excited about that project. And yeah, you can even go on a buffalo hunt. Now, from what I hear, buffalo are sacred, yeah. which means they taste extra good. So you want to take part. Sacred animals always taste better than regular animals.
I'm sure PETA's going to be hiding in the woods, probably taking video of our buffalo hunt. You better believe that. JD,
good to be with you, Jim.
Good to be with you. Well, I'll tell you, you've had an eventful week. There's a couple of items. You've been attacked by the LGBTQ community for some things. Boy, I tell you, it's it's one of those things where I just want to start before we get to you telling what happened. Funny thing is, JD, back 30, 40 years ago when this whole movement was started, what did they ask for? Hey, just treat us like normal. Just let us come out of the closet or whatever term they used. We just want to acclimate to society and be treated like regular folks. Isn't it funny how it always turns around? They felt discriminated against. How it always flips back around. Now they have actually turned into the same group that they were fighting against to get their own rights and their own ability to speak for so long. They've turned into that very group. You care to comment on that, JD? Tell us what happened.
And all along, you have guys like Chuck Colson, Randy Alcorn, and the other quote-unquote culture warriors who told you they're not after our acceptance or our tolerance. They don't want our tolerance. That's not enough. They want our celebration. And anything short of celebrating their life choices is to them now hate speech. I did a short article or a post about that on Facebook the other day. And I said, here's what projection is. Psychologically, projection is when you see something that you don't like about yourself and you project that on other people so as to avoid the guilt that you feel placated. It's to placate the guilt that you feel in yourself. So when someone hates your speech, they'll call it hate speech. when in fact your speech may not be hateful at all, but they hate it, and they hate it terribly.
Yes.
And so then they become guilty of it. Now, let me make one thing clear, though, because what I see on some threads about some of the things where I've been in the news lately about the transgender issue, I want to clarify, I am not a victim. I have never been called a victim, and I hate the concept of victimology. There is a great film by Douglas Wilson of Moscow, Idaho, called Free Speech Apocalypse, in which he points out the American left has used victimology to actually gain power. That's what the intersectionality movement is about. That is what cultural Marxism is about. That is what CRT is about, where everybody's a victim. And by claiming victim, they dog whistle to people who want to feel better about themselves and signal their virtue. And in fact, they make up stories of victimology where none existed. The most famous one recently was Jussie Smollett, right? Where, like, you know, he said that he was attacked brutally in a race-based hate crime. Never happened. 95% of the time, an LGBTQ church is defaced or vandalized. Eventually, they find out, the police do, that they did it themselves. It was someone within the church that put the F slur on the church sign.
That's right.
I'm not a victim.
Flag.
I signed up for this fight. I enlisted in this fight. I'm not a victim.
Yeah, it's like a false flag. They create the problem, and then they complain about the problem they created to get.
I despise victimology. I know what I'm getting into when I'm taking on the LGBTQ. Bring it on. I'm not a victim.
Well, you know, interesting. I brought this up before on one of my other shows. I talked to my friend that works for a banking company, a big bank back east, and I won't mention his name or the banking company. But he had told me that on his emails now, in the company emails, they have to put their gender pronouns literally after their name. My name is Tom, and that's he and him in question marks. Now, I saw an article just a couple of days ago, yesterday maybe, on one of the main KNBC affiliate websites here, and they talked about a fatal car wreck that I think occurred in Columbia Falls, and they said a person. They could not say a man. They couldn't use the term man throughout the whole article. There was a person. It was a guy that got killed. They couldn't say man. They kept referring to him as a person. It's
Look
like,
up medical journals these days, like the New England Journal of Medicine. They won't say women, pregnant women. They'll say people with uteruses, people with penises instead of men.
Well,
so
I just can't even know what to say.
So I wanted to talk about this because not because the tranny mafia, transsexual mafia is upset at me in Montana right now. I like it. That's like if there was a roving band of mentally disabled midgets on skateboards harassing me in my neighborhood. Like, I think I'll be okay. All right. Like, I'm not really worried about them as a threat. It is an annoyance. But there are 3 different legal matters right now that I have to deal with in which I require legal representation for the use of my free speech, primarily related to correctly gendering someone. So there's the LGBTQ plus. They've added a plus. I want to not focus on the LGB right now, Jim, if that's okay. I want to focus on the T part. And because there were some conservatives who were like, why do you feel it unnecessary not to play pretend with them and just call that man a woman when he wants to be called a woman? And I wanted to give an intellectual response as to why I refuse to do that and why they should also refuse to do that.
Right, and first, you know, as far as I'm concerned, and I think I don't want to speak for you, but well, I'm all for people representing themselves however they want to. They can marry a tree. They can. It doesn't really matter to me. I mean, whatever they choose, that's their free choice. So it's not a matter of stopping anybody from being able to express themselves. No. But that goes both ways. That's a two-way street. How come they can express themselves, but certain classes or certain people can't express themselves? So tell us about the misgendering. Can you lay that out for us? I mean, tell us, how do you actually properly gender a person, JD? Do you know?
Well, yeah, because it's obvious. and it's obvious to almost everyone. There are a few people who have become so adept at presenting themselves fraudulently as the wrong gender that you can't tell. These are the ones that you might see on RuPaul's Drag Race. You might see them on billboard campaigns for tolerance. But when you see a transsexual in real life, it takes you it's just a split second to know whether or not that's a man or a woman. So how to tell the difference is not difficult or hard, because we're made differently. Okay, but first let's talk about what correctly gendering someone. They use the term misgender, which itself is a lie, and I refuse to use words that lie. I want to use honest words. So first, let's talk about what correctly gendering someone is not. Okay, if there was a bill, let me ask you, Jim, if there was a bill in the Montana legislature that says we will make it illegal for someone for a man to dress like a woman, would you vote for it?
No.
No, neither would I. So first of all, what it's not. It is not saying that individual doesn't have a right to present themselves however they want, because the Supreme Court has ruled that dress is a free speech issue. So how you dress is a free speech issue. That's a First Amendment issue. And I'm all about the First Amendment. It's not about making it illegal for someone to pretend to be the wrong sex, to present themselves as the wrong sex or the wrong gender. It's not about telling someone they don't have the right to promote transgenderism, quote unquote, because there's no such thing as being transgender, which is part of what I'm here to discuss. Like in terms of objective reality, it doesn't exist. So this isn't about saying you don't have a right to project yourself a certain way. You have a right. If you want to put on a unicorn cap and call yourself a unicorn and identify as a unicorn or a fairy or an alien, that's your constitutional right to be as weird as you want to be. And that's first of all, to let everyone know, that's my stance. They have a right to project themselves as the wrong gender. And here's my point. I have the right to project myself as someone who believes in absolute truth and objective reality. Because of that, I don't misgender someone if I'm having a personal encounter with them. Okay.
Well, here the problem, I shouldn't say the problem is, but one of the things that really is sort of discouraging, as you find corporate America seems to be signing right into this, right? I mean, it's like without even really any debate. There's not even a debate. They're jumping on this bandwagon. This, I don't know why. Is it because they're getting woke? Who knows? You see now, I don't follow this, but quick, do you see it? Sports Illustrated, I guess. I don't probably read Sports Illustrated. I don't follow Sports Illustrated, but apparently they put their first transgender person on the cover ever. I mean, Jordan, it's off the charts, man. I mean, please. Sorry to interrupt.
Let's chase this rabbit for just a second, okay? The biggest problem to American liberty right now is not the government. The biggest problem is the corporatocracy. It's the corporatocracy who's pushing mandatory vaccinations, not the government. It's the corporatocracy that's mandating that you celebrate LGBTQ pride at company events, not the government. It's the corporatocracy that is banning speech, not the government. And so we have a tendency to look at things through a binary lens of government versus private. But when it comes to tyranny, I think that Huxley's Brave New World and Orwell's 1984 are spot on. And they both address aspects of futurism that have now been revealed almost prophetically, except in one area. And that is the ones who are stealing our humanity and our liberty, it turns out not to be the government. It's not what Huxley or Orwell envisioned. It's the corporatocracy. And what we're learning and what you, Jim, have reported on, so I know that you know about it, is it's corporate America running the government. Actually, it's not the government running corporate America. It's corporate America running the government. Like the episode that Dan Happel did with Dr. Shevney, who pointed out that there's a portal in the state of Massachusetts to where if the government in Massachusetts wants someone banned from Twitter, they just ask Twitter and Twitter does it. Bam. Look at how Twitter and Google, for example, have kowtowed to the communist Chinese government. Well, they're doing that all over the world. And so it's a partnership between corporatocracy and the government that has become our real problem. And
that's fascism.
Right now, I'm facing the wrath of the corporatocracy more so than the government. I have no problem with the government whatsoever. But corporate America, even in Montana, and I'll just name Town Pump as the example, is more of a threat to Montanans than the Montana legislature or the governor.
Well, when you have the sort of the meshing of corporations and governments together, that is almost the definition of fascism. I mean, that is that's what we're sort of living under. I mean, you look at the fact that people get banned on I mean, even on Facebook for Montana Daily Gazette, for example. Do you know I can't even live stream this show on our Montana Daily Gazette Facebook page because they've blocked me from doing so. So I have to take it now and then recopy it over. I mean, the thing is, free speech is great as long as you speak, what they want you to say. When you start deviating from that corporate line, man, you're blocked.
Right. And to be clear, let's divide this into two issues. First of all, there are some laws that need to be changed in terms of how big tech operates. Well, they need to be recognized as a communications utility, so they're treated just like phone companies and internet service providers. They are a monopoly or a duopoly. So there are some legal things that need to be done to put these companies into check. But secondly, I think you and I both would affirm the right of a private business to ban speech that they don't like. So I have a church, in that I'm a member of, and if a Jehovah's Witness came in to preach his Jehovah's Witnessness at the pulpit, he would be asked to be quiet or to leave because that's our private property and he can't say that there. And if Town Pump, for example, doesn't like that I referred to a man as a man and not a woman, that's their total 100% right to do so as a business. And then it's my right to determine whether or not I boycott them. Yep. And so there are some laws that could and should be passed to stop it, but we're not arguing against private property rights. What we're saying is freedom of speech goes both ways. If you can identify yourself as a trans-speciesist, trans-ableist, trans midget of the wrong color, of the wrong ethnicity. If Jim White wants to identify as a black man, he can. That's his right. Now, I don't think he has a right to lie about it on a legal form, but he has a right to say I'm black. I have a right to identify as a fundamentalist evangelical Christian who holds to traditional American values. And if someone else shares their opinion, I have a right to share mine. At least until I'm told to leave the property.
Well, you published an article that got some great accolades here a couple of days ago, just a few days ago, during the Pride March in Helena. Here's why this publication refused to bend to trans mafia.
I've already said this.
What do you want to go over some of the finer points of this right here? I mean, this is ridiculous, especially the shirt that says, "Just because I don't have a penis, don't mistake me for a girl." This is, I mean, listen, man, I'm not one to really get into this.
That's actually a slideshow. That's a slideshow. So if you scroll down, Jim, and you press the box on the side, you'll see some of the pictures.
Oh, there we go.
And there's two sets of them. There's two systems. There's a man in a tutu walking his dog. Notice the children who are present there.
Yeah.
Right. And then more children who are present there.
Lots of children there. And I think we saw that.
More children who are present there. Now, those were provided by Debbie Westlake. But if you scroll down, these are slightly altered screenshots so that we don't violate the copyright law of the Montana Legacy Press. And scroll through those. Now look at that shirt. If you can pop that up on the screen, bear bait. that means that the individual wearing the shirt is the receiving end of the sodomy, that he's on the bottom and he's asking for a larger masculine man to be the pitcher while he is the catcher. Okay. All right. That's what that shirt means. Keep scrolling through those images. Okay. Next one.
Wow. That's in Helena? Oh, boy.
Keep in mind, people are like, man, there's a lot of gay people in Helena. The gay pride marches are a hookup scene. These people came from Idaho, Washington, Oregon, Colorado, all over the country because it's basically it turns into a massive orgy at night. That's not an exaggeration. I try to speak at a couple gay pride events a year, and I go to the nightclubs in the evening. They're a hookup scene. So, and then a lot of these people are straight who are there to signal their virtue to support their gay friends. But go to the next video. I want to see a specific photo.
I just want to back up your point. 567% more sexual encounters in a lifetime than the average. What? 567% for crying out loud, JD.
Yeah, the average heterosexual has only 6 sexual partners in a lifetime.
Wow.
And when you factor in things like Tinder and prostitutes, think about how that throws the curve. So the typical heterosexual is having a couple sexual experiences when they're younger, and then they get married, and they may be married a couple times. So you're at about, for the typical person, 6 sexual partners per lifetime. Okay. I'm at 1 right now. So, because of my religious belief, I'm at 1. So, there's a significant difference between how the culture of the LGBTQ, the culture itself, and that of regular America. But there is a photo of somebody in an animal outfit that I'd like you to go through.
Oh yeah, I think I saw something like, there we go. Let's check this out. This guy here, this guy, the wolf.
That's called a furry. Do you know what a furry is, Jim?
Nah, no clue. No, you know what
these are homosexuals, and I don't know where they fit actually on the LGBTQ spectrum. Maybe they're in the Q spectrum and not the L spectrum. Maybe they're Q and not L or G. I'm not sure exactly. But these are people who dress up as animals when they have sex, simulating sex with animals.
It's like bestiality or something like that you're talking about?
Yeah, it's simulated bestiality. That was 102-degree day, and that person was wearing a furry suit. Okay.
Well, our friend Debbie Westlake, who has done some great work, as you well know, sent us over right before the show. She said, you may want to pull this up for the show with JD. And this is from the Statista. This is some statistics here. The Americans who identify as gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender, only 5.6% of the population, JD. 5.6%, yet they managed to pretty much commandeer everything. I mean, hey, listen.
I love Debbie Westlake's research, but I think that she was taken for a ride on that one. Okay, so you can't trust the Kinsey reports going back to the 1960s because they're greatly flawed in terms of the research. But for almost 100 years, the number of people who truly are homosexual are about 2%. Now, that number seems to be rising, but here's why. Statistically, what's happening, I don't have the stats in front of me, but y'all know how Google works. What's happening is it has become in vogue to identify as bisexual, particularly among teenagers. So you have a huge swath of girls who are identifying as gay, who will never have a single lesbian experience in their life, but they're identifying it as homosexual for the I don't know, it's cool. Just like you remember back in the early 2000s, it was cool for Paris Hilton to walk and Paris Hilton wannabes to walk around with a chihuahua in their purse. and then it became cool to have the gay BFF. Like if you were a cool girl, you had a gay best friend. And frankly, now it's cool to identify as bisexual. Almost 100% of those girls marry heterosexually and are monogamous. So even those figures lie. We're talking about 2% roughly of the nation's population that is homosexual. But I want to focus on the T and go back to the transgendering issue.
Sure.
So first of all, what I don't do, if I see a transgender person or someone who's trying, scare quote, I have to use scare quotes because no one in the history of the world has transitioned their gender.
Right.
And let me back up just a little bit and explain this. Gender is a synonym for sex until they changed the dictionary. That's why I say one of the books that you need to own is a pre-1954, a pre-World War II, or 1954 is kind of seen as the beginning of the postmodern movement in which words don't have meanings. That's why I say 1954. You need to buy an older dictionary, because now online dictionaries in particular change the definitions of words by the minute. As a matter of fact, we saw that in Senate testimony when Amy Coney Barrett used the word sexual preference. That was a gay word. They invented that term. A senator accused her of homophobia for using the word, and the online dictionary went and made it pejorative within minutes of her saying that. This is Orwellian. So buy an older dictionary while they're still in print and put it in your gun safe along with your family Bible, okay? So gender and sex are synonyms. Biologically, they are synonyms. The separation of gender and sex did not happen by the medical community or the psychiatric community. The separation between gender and sex happened by the gay movement, by the Comintern movement in the 1980s. So on government forms, until the second term of the Clinton administration, you would see the term on questionnaires of any kind of government form, whether it's like a NICS ATF background form or the US Census, whatever, it would say sex, male or female. Now it says gender, male or female. And they did that to allow someone to be able to say, I have a penis, but I'm a woman. All right. So the division between sex and gender is completely artificial. It's not biological. It's not scientific. It's made up. Okay. It's fabricated. It's fraudulent. Sex is gender. There's no separation of the two. So the first thing I'd like to do, Jim, is explain that this is a religious concept. So in order to believe in transgenderism, you have to believe that there is a physical you that has a penis or a vagina, your body, and a metaphysical you. You have an inside you. And that inside you is the opposite of the outside you. Now, Jim, in your religious tradition, what do you call that notion of there being an inside you? You'd call that a soul or a spirit, wouldn't you?
Right. So, yeah, spirit.
Right,
Yes.
which is why native transgender folks use the term two-spirit to refer to the native transgender folks. We're two-spirit. This is a religious idea. So when people say your opposition to transgenderism is religious, well, it is in part because God made them both male and female, God created them. But that is not my go-to argument, usually, when I'm speaking to someone who doesn't affirm the Bible. My argument is more biological than that. Science, biology, and objective reality demonstrates that someone is a man or they are a woman. So that's the core of our argument. But let's not pretend as though it's only those of us against the notion of misgendering are the religious ones. It is fundamentally religious to believe that transgenderism is even possible, that you are on the inside one thing, but on the outside something else, because that marriages together the physical and the metaphysical, the natural and the supernatural.
Let me ask you this. What's your thoughts on, I mean, it's preposterous to think, JD, that a 5 or 6 year old who's just, realized they've got a belly button, for crying out loud, that they can make a decision that I was born the wrong I was born the wrong sex and now I have to try to have it changed. At 5 and 6 years old, I mean, that's almost borderline. That's child abuse. I don't even know. I'm just going to say it. That's child abuse. I can't.
Yeah, that's
can't
not,
describe it another way.
It's not close to borderline child abuse.
No.
That's child mutilation. That's sex mutilation, and it happens all over the world, and it happens upon children. Okay, so most stats demonstrate that about 90% of the children who receive a sex gender reassignment surgery or hormonal treatment, often which cannot be reversed and causes infertility, regret it. But let's not pretend. Let's not give the opposition the benefit of the doubt to say these are children who want sex changes. These are children who have been brought to gay pride parades and normalized in their eyes.
That's right.
Perversities. When I say perversity, I don't use it as an insult. I mean a changing, a contorting of of God's natural order. All right, males with females. That's how sex works. That's how babies are made. These are little boys who play with Barbies, and their moms go, "Oh, they're transgender." That's their parents. That's not little kids.
Sure.
By the way, little children play pretend. I have a little girl, and a number of years ago, she said, "I'm a boy, and my name is Pop." And we said, now it wasn't like she sat us down to seriously tell us this. She was playing pretend, and it was just an imagination game. And I said, your name is not Pop. You are not a boy. You are a girl, and your name is such and such. And then it was over. But to a leftist, they think, oh my gosh, my child just came out of the closet.
It's so true, man.
My child just came out of the closet. I don't trust my 5-year-olds or 7-year-olds with what they eat.
Yeah,
like,
correct.
Right? Like, I don't let them pick their own supper.
No, they'd be eating hot dogs and chicken nuggets all the time, man.
Right.
Or whatever.
So why let them make these decisions? Well, within the care of their doctor. So here's why the transgender issue matters to me. The transgender issue matters to me. Correctly gendering someone when they're in front of you matters because of the concept of absolute truth. So what absolute truth, or let me put it this, let me use the term objective reality. When something is when I use the term objective reality, it is defined as a truth that exists, whether or not it is conscious by those who believe or disbelieve it. Okay? So an absolute truth, objective reality, is something that is not a matter of subjective opinion. It's just objectively true.
Like, for example, you may not believe if you stand in front of a truck that it will kill you if you get run over, but actually carry it out and you will see that you were wrong. It will. Right. So in the news business, as well as a Christian, but in the news business, we have to be committed to absolute truth. Okay, so I'll give just some examples. There are people who are utterly, totally convinced that the world is flat. Like they will make some compelling sounding arguments that the world is flat. Okay. The world's not flat. The objective reality is the world is round. Whether or not they realize it's flat has no bearing on whether or not the world is flat. Okay. Let me give one that's hypothetical. If God exists, then God exists whether or not you believe that God exists. All right? I think it was C.S. Lewis who said, a man could no more make God not exist than scribbling on his jail cell wall, the sun does not exist, something like that. Like, even if a lunatic said the sun does not exist, it's a figment of our imagination, you'd say, well, that's your subjective opinion, but that's not absolute truth. So that's not objective reality. So when it comes to COVID shots, there's an objective reality as to whether or not they work. Let's not even talk about what that reality is. Let's just admit there is an objective reality as to whether or not they work, right? With masking, there is an objective reality as to whether or not masks work.
All right. That's not up. It is up for debate, but it's not subjective. It's not like masks work if you think they work. It's not like COVID shots work if you think COVID shots work, or vice versa. They either do or they don't. We're in the realm of objectivity here. Okay. If we can't clarify what is objective reality from what is a subjective opinion, we're all screwed. And so there are people, Jim, as we're talking about the trans issue, who believe firmly that they are trans species. There are people who have gone under plastic surgery believing firmly that they were meant to be a cat. And on the inside, they're a cat.
Oh, yeah.
So Google them.
Yeah, Barbie, everything else. They dressed, all kinds of stuff. Crazy.
Yeah. Okay. Sometimes they believe that they're an alien. There are people who are transhumanist, who believe that they are something besides human. Usually that means like a cyborg, that there may be a robot.
Yeah.
And there are even transableists. Transableists are people who believe that they're disabled when they're not. In Canada,
that's a new one.
Transableism corrective surgery is being done so that if a man says, I feel like I'm disabled and my legs do not belong here, on the inside I'm disabled, and they're cutting off perfectly good legs, good arms, and perfectly good hands because the people are transable. Google it.
I can't even believe what you're saying. I mean, I've never even heard that before. That
okay,
bizarre world, man.
And yet, Jim, you can believe what I'm saying because a bill just passed the Montana House, and some Republicans, or it just passed into law. Some Republicans voted against it that said you can't chop off your penis just because you don't think it belongs. So why is that any different than a doctor chopping off someone's hand because they don't think it belongs? Your penis works fine. You may be confused as to why it's there, but it has a function and it works. Leave it.
And that's
so if somebody says, I don't think my hand belongs there, I don't know why it's here, I feel like it shouldn't be there, cut off my hand. In Canada, the surgeons will cut off their hand.
Well, the naysayers are going to go back and say, doesn't the Bible say that if your eye offends you, then pluck it out?
I suppose so. Paul Washer would say, twist not scripture lest you be like Satan. So there are other kinds of trans folks as well. There are people who believe that they are vampires. There are people who believe that, the fact is, so here's the point. We all have to draw the line somewhere in the sand. Okay. I would suspect that a lot of the people at Gay Pride Helena would not be for someone having their perfectly good hand cut off yet. Okay. Well, we have to draw a line in the sand somewhere. My line in the sand is objective reality. So remember how I went back at the beginning, I said, you have a right to wear whatever clothes you want because your clothing, according to the Supreme Court, is a speech choice. It's actually speech. Clothing is speech. You remember me saying that? Okay. So if someone is wearing a shirt that says something that is untrue on it, then I feel as though it's perfectly within my right to tell them that it's not true. So if someone is walking through Walmart with a shirt that says the earth is flat, without starting an argument, without being berating, they're making a statement by the shirt. The shirt itself is making a statement. They're speaking according to the Supreme Court.
Right.
They're speaking by wearing that shirt.
Sure. I agree.
And so therefore I will speak back and I say, no, it's not. The world is round. And I'll give you 1 minute of my time to explain to you why it's round and not flat. Okay. If someone is wearing a trans pride pin, they're speaking. That's their opinion. That's speech according to the First Amendment. And I'm going to take a minute without disrupting business, without being rude, to say, you're not like a woman, you're a man. And everyone knows you're a man. And that pin doesn't make you a man. Because for a few reasons. Number one, objective reality is important. If we fail on objective reality, then life is meaningless. Jim, I refuse to live in a world where life is meaningless.
No, I concur.
I want to live in a world of objective reality where some things are true no matter what.
Well, we're well put. Well, we're going to take a break here in a minute, but before we do, and then we're going to make a quick phone call here, just coming up in about 5 minutes. But I want to touch on this real quick. This is going to be pertinent to. Did you want to finish up with anything, JD? Did you get everything?
I'd like to finish up this discussion and then let's get to some other stuff if possible. Yeah, give me about 5 more minutes on the other end.
Yeah, well, no, you can go ahead. We're supposed to be making a call here in about 5 minutes, so you can go ahead and just finish it up, and then I'll make.
Okay, you're not on a hard break. You're not on a hard break.
No, I set my own breaks.
Okay,
so we're good.
So I would like people to familiarize themselves with the topic of transhumanism. Transhumanism is as old as creation itself. The idea that we as humans can evolve into something else. Okay. And you can listen to Joe Rogan talk about transhumanism, who's not exactly a philosopher, or you can listen to Jordan Peterson talk about transhumanism, who is a philosopher. But it's an important topic that people should familiarize themselves with. It's the idea that we as humans can become something that is not human. It could be something that Hollywood portrays, like the X-Men, where we're going to all mutate to the point that we are now something besides human. Okay. Transgenderism is transhumanism. Okay. Because they are who they are biologically, because God created them, both male and female, God created them. They're trying to step outside the bounds of what is basic humanity. When the baby comes out of the mother, the first thing the doctor says, if there's not been an ultrasound done, if they do the gender surprise thing, is it's a boy or it's a girl. It is part and parcel to our humanity. So much so as that it's not has nothing to do with your genitalia. Or I don't want to say it has nothing to do with your genitalia, but it's on the chromosomal level. When we begin to believe that we can change that about which makes us human, we are merging into a transhumanism. But here's the thing. A baby is a person. A baby is a human, and all humans are people. A black person is not 3/5 of a person. The 3/5 compromise was perverse, was it not? It was gross. A slave, a black man, is a person because God has made them a person.
Sure.
They're made in the image of God, and they're not 3/5 of one. Every human is a person. The Nazi regime said Jews were humans, but not people. We affirm that everyone is a person, and they're a person because God made them. So in Montana, a handshake means something. Jim, what does a handshake mean in Montana when you're making a business deal? What does that mean?
It means it's pretty much as good as a signature. It's better than a signature, really. I mean, it's a done deal. When you shake your hand, it's a done deal.
Right. So when I am transacting business and someone is wearing a trans pride pin and presenting themselves as a female when they are a male, it offends me as a Montanan as much as it does a Christian.
Right.
Because I expect honesty from those with whom I'm doing business. And presenting yourself in a false manner is offensive. I need a trigger warning. I need a trigger warning for that. Like when you enter this store, your senses will be jarred because you'll be lied to at the counter. And then I'm wondering, what else are they lying to me about?
Yeah, right on.
It's dishonesty.
Is that real meat in the sub?
If I look, unless it's Halloween, and I look at someone who is intentionally, fraudulently lying about the way God made them, not only am I denying their humanity and affirming their attempt at a transhumanity, but I'm bearing false witness against them. I'm lying about them. So I would say 5% of Montanans agree with me approaching a retail clerk and saying, you're a man, you're not a woman, and you should repent and trust in Christ. I'd say 5%, and those would be the 5% of evangelical Christians who believe in evangelism and believe in witnessing or sharing their faith. Now, there's a lot more Christians in Montana than that, but there's not that many that truly believe that we should do what 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 4 says, which is to preach the word when it's convenient and when it's inconvenient.
In season, out of season, right?
All the time.
So
in season and out of season. The NIV says when it's convenient, when it's inconvenient.
Yeah, Ray Comfort. If you guys haven't, I'm going to give you a plug here. If you haven't seen the work of a guy like Ray Comfort, I tell you, he's a great person to get started at and get boldness. It gives you boldness. It helps you become bold to be able to go out and be bold like he does. You have any comment on that?
And what Ray Comfort will help you with is to learn how to do that in a very brief period of time.
Right.
Okay. But understand that gender dysphoria is a mental illness according to the American Psychiatric Association and the DSM-5. And when you refuse to speak the truth, you're reinforcing that which harms them. You're hurting them. So get this, sometimes hurting people's feelings is what's best for their overall wholeness.
I would agree.
The best ER doctor I know in Sydney, Montana is one of the biggest jerks I've ever met. But if I'm ever in the ER, I request him. And so whether or not it's pleasant, we should correctly identify who people are, lest we lie, lest we are not a man of our word, not just against that person lying about our neighbor, which is not okay with me, but lying about the God who made them.
That's right.
Now, in terms of this phone call, actually, Jim, do you want to do that after the break?
Yeah, I want to take a quick break. I want to actually make the call during the break, and that way hopefully we'll have our guest here after the break. Did you have anything you wanted to say before we go and do that?
Actually, I'm not totally sure that the guest knows if we're talking about the same person.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm not totally sure that they are ready for that phone call, but that's the point. So if it's okay with you, let's call them after the break.
Yeah, we can do that. Sure, that's no problem at all.
Okay.
We'll take a quick commercial break. And again, before we go to this break, folks, we just want to remind you, if you like what you see here and you want to support independent news, please go over to patreon.com/Gideon Knox. You see that right underneath JD's name there. And there's a variety of plans, basically for anybody's budget, $9.95 a month. That's what, 30 cents, 40 cents a day. Plus you get even for that, the small subscription, you get a free subscription to the email blast, the insurgency email blast. So go here and check it out if you can. Support this broadcast, the new Montana Murder Hornet podcast. It's going to be coming up here, hopefully. I think we're doing our first show, I think this weekend, JD, is what we're planning on. So go check that out and support us here. You can also support us at MontanaGazetteRadio.com, MontanaGazetteRadio.com, or the #1 online news source in Montana, MontanaDailyGazette.com. And we're going to take a quick commercial break here, come back on the other side with JD Hall, and hopefully we can get a phone call out here and get someone on the line after the break. So thanks for looking in here. We'll be back after these brief messages here on Montana Gazette Radio. If you like classic cars, exceptional service, and a money-back guarantee, then the Corner Shop in beautiful downtown Kalispell is the place for you. Whether it's an oil change, engine diagnostic, suspension work, or brakes all around, the Corner Shop has you covered. With expert technicians and a free consultation on all services, you can't go wrong with the Corner Shop. Did I mention the classic cars? While you're waiting for your expert service to be performed, take a stroll through the showroom to see Kalispell's smoothest collection of classic cars. The Corner Shop is conveniently located at 1212 South Main, just south of the courthouse. The Corner Shop is open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m., so drop by for an appointment or call 755-7777. That's 755-7777. The Corner Shop, Kalispell's full-service auto repair facility. Hi, this video is brought to you by PatriotPrepared.com, where right now you can save $250 on each large package purchase, plus get free shipping to the continental United States. In these troubled times, it's not a bad idea to have some extra food storage available, and you can save big at Patriot Prepared right now. Go to patriotprepared.com, that's patriotprepared.com, and use the code TRUMP250 at checkout to receive your savings today. Yeah, folks, please go to the Murder Hornet podcast and sign up so we can get some new voice talent for those commercials, if you don't mind. We'd appreciate that, because that guy is just wearing me out. Thanks again for joining us here on the broadcast. MontanaDailyGazette.com. MontanaDailyGazette.com is the website, and Montana Gazette Radio is the broadcast. So we're delighted to have J.D. Hall with us today, and we're going to bring J.D. back on the line with us here and take him off of mute. There we go. I can't hear you now. I can hear you now.
Yeah, I had an idea that I shared with you earlier, which I think is what you're talking about. First of all, we could talk about Ryan Zinke in just a moment or whenever you want.
Yeah.
To me, this race, for Montana's congressional district, comes down to a Washingtonian or a Montanan. You can vote for a Washington swamp creature, someone from Montana. And one of the things that I look for in a representative or an elected official of any kind is how accessible they are to me. I want to know that they're accessible. And I'll tell you right now, one complaint I have about Steve Daines, bless his heart, the only time I've ever spoken to him is when I've cornered him at an event. His campaign has never emailed me back. I find that obnoxious. One of the things I like about, say, for example, our lieutenant governor, she texts me back. How polite is that? That's nice of her to do that, isn't it?
Okay, let me tell you a quick Dane story. So I cornered him. Hey, he came out of the bathroom. He was at the fairgrounds here for an event. I caught him just as he walked out of the bathroom. I just happened to have my selfie stick and my iPhone. I got an interview with him. I don't know, about a 2 or 3 minute interview with him. The mainstream press they were lit up because he wouldn't give anybody an interview, but he gave a conspiracy. I think they called me a conspiracy, a militia website, an interview. But anyway, that's my quick Steve Daines story. It was about 2 or 3 years ago. Sorry to cut you off there.
Yeah, the thing is, I just want to be able to talk to the people who I voted for, or maybe who I didn't vote for, but I'm their constituent. And I don't want to talk to him about the weather just when I have a concern. So I'll just give you one example. I left my sheriff's department right before I got here, and I just had something briefly to talk to the sheriff about. No big deal. But I had to wait in the office an hour because he doesn't hand out his email or his phone, either one. So I have to wait an hour of my time to be able to speak with him.
Not efficient.
It's not efficient. I'm gonna trust that it's not disrespectful because I don't hand out my phone to just anybody either. But I'm not an elected official.
Correct. Not yet. Anyway.
Okay. Right. But one thing that I appreciate about Al Olszewski, who's running for that 2nd congressional seat, is like Kristen Juris or like Austin Knudsen or like Christy Jacobson, or like Elsie Arntzen, or Troy Downing. I appreciate people who return emails and answer phone calls to their constituents.
Sure.
I appreciate that. So I thought to myself, and this is what I mentioned to you earlier, let's see if we can get Al on the phone. I hope that we don't get a busy signal or he doesn't answer.
You can try. I think I have. I know I have his personal line.
I've got his number too. Do you want to call or do you want me to call?
Yeah, you can go and give him a call. Give him a ring. Yeah.
Okay.
I think he'll probably equally answer both of our phone calls. But yeah, Al's been on the broadcast numerous times
right.
here. He's from the Flathead. Really, really like Al an awful lot.
And I guess the reason is just to demonstrate that this man is accessible to the Montanan people.
Usually is. When I call him, he usually gets the phone, or he texts me and says he can't talk to me.
So I'll put him on speakerphone and put him up to the mic.
Now, he's the hardest working man in politics.
Oh, man. He's a beast.
Hello.
Hey, Dr. Al, this is Jordan Hall. How are you?
Jordan, I'm doing fine. Just on the phone, Representative Bartell.
Yeah.
Oh,
we can hear
excellent.
you good. Yeah, we can hear him good. Hey, Al.
Well,
what's up?
Hey, Al, I'm here with Jim. This seems like a weird phone call because we're calling you out of the blue here, but we were trying to demonstrate how much we appreciate elected officials or the candidates for office who actually answer the phone calls and the emails of their constituents. And I told Jim, I said, I bet we could call Al and he'd actually answer the phone and talk to us. And there you are on the phone talking to us now. How's your day going, Al?
You know, the day's going well. We're between family and working on this campaign for the open Western congressional seat. I'm calling and working to get and gain people's support for this race. So that's what my day is for today.
Okay, now you're talking to Jordan Hall. I presume, I'm just going to go out on a limb, that you haven't heard everything I've ever said in my entire life, and neither do you endorse everything that I've ever said in my entire life. Is that a fair assessment?
I would say that that's fair, Jordan. We've crossed paths a number of times, I would agree that how can you be 100% in agreement with everybody?
Right, and I've seen
America,
I've seen your voting record, and I don't agree with 100% of your voting record. Just to throw that out there.
Yeah, and that's fair. I think that we should find common ground and work forward just like you would in a family. And there's going to be things that we just will take different tacks, but hopefully it's for a common goal.
But communication is always good, wouldn't you say? Whether you agree with somebody or not, communication is always good.
Yeah, I do. As a physician, you have to, whether it's good news or bad news, you need to address it. You need to do it promptly, and just make sure that people know where you stand and what you will do to work with them or for them. So that's what I've done for my patients and with the hospitals, and I do it as a state legislator.
So having you on speakerphone on a radio program is not quality radio, but we're just trying to make a point that we do find you to be more accessible than your opponent. So if you could, in just a short period of time, the last question I have for you is, what's your philosophy of communicating with your constituents, and how open and how readily available do you plan to personally be to the people who vote to put you into office when you win in 2022?
Well, again, I think it's got to be an open door policy, and we need to be very transparent about what we do and how we communicate. Sometimes it takes a while. Like when we're in state legislature, there was a time I was 6,000 emails behind. It took me 8 months after the legislative session to actually get back to each one of those people who sent me an email. But we do it. And so we will do our best, and we will have basically I'll have some people helping. I'll have to have a staff that will help me with my ability to communicate with Montana and for Montana to communicate with me.
Well, thank you for being willing to communicate with Montanans, Al. And we, if nothing else, even if you were a Democrat running for office, we would say thank you for communicating with us, because we think that makes the world a better place when we can communicate and not cancel one another. So thank you, Dr. Al, for your time.
Well, you're welcome. And with that, I 100% agree with you on that topic. All right, Jordan.
All right.
I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Doc.
And Jim, if you're there, thank you.
You're welcome.
Talk to you later.
All right, buddy.
Bye.
Bye.
There goes Doc. There goes Dr. Al. Yeah, I mean, he's a man of the people. He's a real dude. He's a real guy. I like him an awful lot. He's been a
You have Zinke's number?
You know what? I used to have his number. Isn't that funny? I don't think I have it anymore. I think I lost it when I switched phones over.
I definitely don't have it.
I spoke to him on the phone, though, before, for sure. But it was a while ago. I don't think I do, JD. I don't think I have his. But
hey,
we don't
just for kicks and giggles, Jim, why don't you send Zinke's campaign an email and ask him to come on to the Montana Daily Gazette or Montana Gazette Radio or any other question, and then let's time it and see how long it takes to get a response from the Zinke campaign.
Yeah, we can do that.
Can you do that?
You mean on the fly right now? I'd have to.
No, not right now.
Oh, yeah, I can do that. Sure, absolutely. I'll be able to do a quick screenshot video with a timestamp.
It's not going to be before the program's over.
No, that's for sure. Well, speaking of Zinke, that's a nice segue into the next topic that we want to talk about here. Is this thing just came across my desk, and I got to give a shout out, a hat tip to Mr. Zinneker, who sent this over to us. But let's take a look at this document right here. This is from last month. And you know something, as I stated in an article that's going to be probably printed here probably 10 minutes after the show's over, I'm shocked. I have to say,
Hold
JD,
on.
I'm shocked that he would even post this.
I'm noticing I'm noticing a similarity between all these names.
Yes, you are. I bet you
and
are.
That is, they all have F or D grades on Legistats.
They actually, you are very perceptive, because that is the next website we're going to be going to. And if you compare, you really don't have to go. Don't look for the names. If you go to Legistats, don't look for the names up here in the top. You're not going to find them. Just go scroll down right to the bottom, and that's where most all of them are in this section here, brother.
I see Rob Cook's name on that list.
His Rob Cook's name is on that list. Correct. He's no longer a legislator, but he was a previous legislator.
He ran against Randy Pinocci, put up against Randy by Lou Jones.
Now, the thing that confuses me is Terry Gauthier gets a B rating, and that's the highest rating. It's like he's hanging out with the wrong crowd or something. I don't know Terry Gauthier, but he's got a B.
Well, we don't want to guilt by association.
Correct.
Necessarily, but when almost everyone that you are advertising is in the Democrat wing of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Wake up, Montana.
Yeah. I mean, folks.
Wake up, Montana.
I mean, is it any more obvious than this?
That's all that I want to say about that. I mean Zinke is what was his score in Legistats? It was a 67%, wasn't it?
Yeah, I didn't check his, but yes, it was very low. It was very low. Yes.
It was an F. It was a D grade, I think.
Yeah,
but it was 67%, maybe an F. I don't know how
every one of these people serving currently,
except
for former, all the current serving ones, they all have D's except for two. Save two of them, they all have D ratings, and that's the people he puts on a poster that he's. I mean, folks, this is
now
more
to be fair
stuff.
Though. Some of those, like Lou Jones, who got a D this year, only got a D because there was a Republican governor. The last 15 years, they've all got Fs.
Maybe, yeah, it's probably pretty close to being right.
So all of the Republicans were lifted up a little bit voting with the Republican majority, because you have Quislings who will support whatever party is in power in the governor's office. And then when it's a Republican, they'll vote slightly more Republican. But yeah, Zinke, bless his heart. I thought it was funny that Dr. Al said he had an open door policy. Do you know about the door controversy of Zinke's that helped get him fired from the Interior Department?
I know it was a couple of things. I know he was flying around in a helicopters for like $130,000, and I think wasn't there some sweet deal or something in Whitefish where somebody in his family got like a $400 million like two.
Yeah, he was pulling a Lou Jones. Like Lou Jones makes it a killer money by pushing legislation for he'll create a company and then he'll pass legislation funding his company.
Absolute truth. That's true. True statement.
As a matter of fact, I think some of that might still be up at a website some random person owns called Capital Whispers. If memory serves.
That's right. I forgot about that.
But I don't think Dr. Al was intending to make a funny or a pun. But when he said open door policy, so Ryan Zinke was tired of people coming to his office to visit him as a legislator. So he put in doors to his office that cost $137,000. He spent, I don't know if he actually did it or just requested it, $137,000 for doors that could not be opened so that he could hide from people in his office. Now, to be fair, I think the people he was complaining about were the folks complaining about the endangered sage grouse. They probably weren't Republicans he was hiding from, but he clearly did not have an open door policy. And when the Interior Department's Inspector General, who works for President Trump, looked at it, he said, yeah, Zinke's in the wrong on all these things, on all of this government waste, and Zinke has to go. That's why when Trump endorsed him, we were like, what? You fired him. Like Trump said, you fired, and then endorsed him, probably because he just doesn't know Dr. Al. And to Zinke's credit, he didn't throw Trump under the bus after he left, like General Maddox or help me out, Rex Tillerson or some.
Rex Tillerson, and then
Anthony Scaramucci and so forth.
What's that? The General Mattis? You said Mattis, right? General Mattis, whatever. The Mad Dog.
Mattis, yeah, not Maddox. Mad Dog Mattis. And so, but I think that Zinke didn't. I mean, maybe he didn't throw Trump under the bus because he's a loyal man. That's a possibility. I don't know his character. Maybe he's got great character. But if you want to run for Montana, you want a Trump endorsement. So that would be one reason he wouldn't throw Trump under the bus on his way out.
Well, and you don't want to have fundraising events with like headliners with those people. I mean, there's no doubt about it that the whole he doesn't know any better, I guess. I don't know. Does he realize that the shift is changing? People are going away from that.
I want to tell a story about Zinke real quick, Jim, and then I want to explain the Montana murder hornet a little bit more, and then I want to go about the rest of my day, if that's okay with you. All right.
Of course.
So I was called by U.S. intelligence, who said, "Hey, we see that you have written some articles about." And we want to pass some information along to you.
You broke up. Repeat that. You broke up right when you said the name. Do again, please.
All right. My bad. So I was called by U.S. intelligence, and they wanted me to write something about James Riotti. Can you hear me now? Okay. And James Riotti was Clinton's finance money man who was getting Bill Clinton foreign cash from South Korea to fund his presidential run. The problem is that's illegal. So James Riotti, an Indonesian billionaire, got kicked out of the country. He can't come back in. And they charged him under the Clinton administration, but it wasn't finalized until the Bush administration. The Bush administration kicked him out, wouldn't let him come back in. He pled guilty to 84 misdemeanors and a felony, for trying to affect America's political system with foreign cash. Now, when Hillary Clinton was in the Obama administration as the Secretary of State, there was a declaration handed down out of nowhere by Obama's Interior Department that said no more mining on federal lands, particularly in Utah. Now, the Utah mines control like 99% of America's copper supply. That's what they mine, is copper in Utah. So overnight, these mines all went bankrupt. Do you know who bought those bankrupted mines for literally a penny on the dollar? James Riotti.
Oh, Riotti, okay.
Riotti's Indonesian company and one of his Chinese companies bought all those mines in Utah. The thought process was Hillary Clinton was a shoo-in. They all thought she was going to win. Now, Riotti is a member of the Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton Foundation. He still hangs out with them, still BFFs with the Clintons. The thought was Hillary would become president, release the moratorium on copper mining in Utah, and then Riotti, you understand what would happen then. His companies that he bought for pennies would now be worth billions or trillions.
Sure.
So I was contacted by U.S. intelligence saying, write this story, but furthermore, you're a Montanan. Get a hold of Ryan Zinke. We can't even get a hold of Ryan Zinke. And tell him, because he's the Interior Secretary, you're a Montanan. Do you have any connections? Tell Zinke to look into Riotti and the copper mines and the Interior Department under his predecessor doing this. I emailed about a dozen times, left about a dozen phone calls. Not an answer from Ryan Zinke. Not an answer. So this is why I'm supporting Al Olszewski. Aside from the fact that Zinke's in the Democratic wing of the Republican Party, I'm supporting Al Olszewski in the next primary election, or in the primary election for the second congressional seat.
And folks, as things continue to heat up here in Montana and across the country, I mean, there's we're in a very tumultuous time here in this nation. As you know, we're more divided than ever. JD Hall and I are going to be launching the Montana Murder Hornet podcast. It's certainly going to be more Montana centric, but there'll be other things that we will cover as well. But we're going to focus primarily on Montana and have guests that are sort of important to the news cycle in Montana. Hopefully, if they accept an invitation to come on the broadcast. But JD, I'm going to pop over here to the website with the Montana Murder Hornet podcast, and talk, if you can, about these levels so people can get excited about it.
And the Montana Murder Hornet podcast, let me explain the name. Last year we heard about the murder hornet that was going to kill us all.
Right.
And we're trying to say, don't live in fear. It's a freaking bug, okay? Like, we're going to be fine. The news was trying to make us afraid.
Yes.
We don't want people to live in fear. No. The scripture says God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of courage and of a sound mind. Mm-hmm. And so we thought, well, let's call it the Montana Murder Hornet, to demonstrate the catastrophizing, panicking hysteria of the left. The Montana Murder Hornet. And this is not a news program. This is a commentary program.
Right.
We're only just going to comment on the news. It's going to be more satirical. It's going to be more sarcastic. It's going to be more irreverent, not towards God, but towards liberals for sure. And so it's between Jim and I. And so if you want to pop that screen back up, I'll explain the benefits of it. Matter of fact, I might need to do that myself because I can't necessarily see.
I think I can jam this up a little bit here and make this a little bit bigger for you.
Good.
Okay. For some reason, it won't let me expand the.
I can only see it popped up while you're talking, though, is the problem. So let me go there myself.
I think my keyboard is actually.
I have this problem sometimes on Zoom. It's not the first time, but I got it up. I got it up now.
You got it?
So, by the way, we've been getting emails and phone calls and texts from people from the beginning saying, I hate the ads on Montana Gazette. We do too. We don't like them. But this business ain't free. I got like 3 groups of trannies suing me at the same time. Well, that's not going to make YouTube. Transsexuals, transgender, transspecies. I don't know. It's easier just to call them trannies. Plus, next week, it'll probably be approved by them for their use. I don't know. So it's not free to do what we do. So I don't like the ads either. So I think we have enough supporters by now. This is the process that we want to use. So you can become a scout for only $9.95 a month, and what you get with that is, first of all, you get to listen to the Montana Murder Hornet because that's the only way that it's going to be available. So I would encourage you to join just to be able to subscribe to that, 1 podcast a week, along with other exclusive content that will be just for you. You'll also get a free ebook of my book, A Patriot's Catechism of the United States Constitution. But also you're going to get a free subscription to the paid edition of The Insurgency. So as Jim mentioned earlier, like, we're banned on Facebook. And how do you get news if you can't scroll through Facebook and get it? Well, you have to type in www.thefederalist.com, www.gatewaypundit.com. I guess these days you don't need the www, but you got to go directly to Todd Starnes and Steve Dace and Zero Hedge. We will bring you in your email inbox 1 email a day, 6 days a week, with banned news that have been banned in social media. So you don't have to do all that work. And you look at the headline. If you want to read it, you click the article. If you don't want to read it, you don't. My news team, it takes them about 4 hours to go through these headlines to determine what's good news and what you need to know and what's likely to be banned. So this is saving you a lot of work. So somebody called me the other day and they go, I've been off grid for a week. What should I know about the world? Wanted me to fill them in. And I said, I don't have time to fill you in, but go subscribe to The Insurgency. And I gave them a free edition. They were a friend of mine. I gave them the free paid subscription. But that's the best way, is to find out what's going on in the world, is the insurgency. And it's sometimes, yeah, we might have a link to Tucker Carlson or something that's not banned, but usually it's links that of something that is banned in social media. For $19.95 a month, you'll get all those benefits. Plus, you'll get to join us in the podcast of the Montana Murder Hornet from what we call the cheap seats, meaning that we'll have a Zoom like this, and we'll have a section where you can ask questions and interact. You can actually take part in that discussion. And I think that's a pretty cool benefit. For $49.95 a month, you'll get the personal phone number and contact information of Jim and I to be able to share with us your thoughts directly, and you'll be able to take part in social invites just for you, VIP events, when we get together at various places, like say, for example, the Montana legislature, and we'll announce, say, if you are this level of supporter on Patreon, come meet us for coffee at the Jorgensen Hotel or anywhere but a town pump. Let's meet for coffee.
Funny.
Yeah, funny. And then let me see. Then the Pioneer for $99.95 a month, you'll get all of those benefits plus 2 free books in the mail. Now, they're not free technically; you're paying for them. But one book will be on politics, could be something by Thomas Sowell or Jordan Peterson, or which would be more philosophy than politics. And then you'll get one book on Christianity, one of each. 2 books in the mail for you to read or for your collection. For $4.95 a month, you get all the benefits of the previous things that we just mentioned, plus an invitation to our annual Gideon Knox Group's Black Robe Banquet in Billings, Montana, to hear speakers who, well, talk about the things that we talk about. That's available after 6 months of patronage. So you get all of the other stuff, plus the invitation to an exclusive banquet. And then for $9.95 a month, you'll receive an all expenses paid trip, including either a fuel voucher or an airline ticket and a hotel, to an exclusive buffalo hunt with us. Now, to be fair, not everyone who goes will get to kill a buffalo, but you'll get to take part in the process. And we are going to butcher it and eat it like God intended out on the prairie. And so with just us and the movers and shakers in Montana politics, who you may not otherwise have a chance to meet. And so the reason we're doing that is because it costs money to run a radio station. It costs money to run a newspaper. It costs money to run a podcast. It costs money to defend ourselves against junk lawsuits by the trans mafia. And if you hate our ads, this is a great way to support us. By the way, if you don't maybe like this idea, everyone is having to do this. The Huffington Post is having to do this. The Washington Post is having to do this. You're going to have to the day of free news is quickly over. Zero Hedge, one of the largest financial websites in the world, perhaps, maybe even in the world, or, way up there. They have to do advertising now as well. They're doing premium channels and premium content too. So yeah. Are they really? Yeah. I saw Epic Times do that. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe that Epoch Times is a subscription only now. So it's either one of two things. We either charge everyone for our content to be able to see it, at which point the valuable information we have is limited, or we can have people who really support us go to Patreon, and that allows us to give our content for free to everyone. And because, we also share the gospel on Sundays in our religion columns, and often whenever else we feel like it, we want it to go out to everybody. Sure, of course. Right? So the people that really do support our activism and our journalism and everything else that we're doing, support us on Patreon. It's super easy. That gives an ad-free experience on the website. And plus, you're going to get access to what is, I think, going to be the coolest podcast in Montana, the Montana Murder Hornet. It's going to be a hoot. As a matter of fact, Jim, I sent you an audio, I think, of POTUS endorsing the podcast, didn't I? The former POTUS.
You did. And I got the message. I couldn't find it. You probably didn't get the message I sent. Please send it back because I can't find it. I can't.
So
I said, but we'll have it ready. Yeah, we'll have it ready next time. I have the cowboy one.
It's going to be hilarious. You don't want to miss the Montana Murder Hornet. Go sign up today. If you're not familiar with Patreon, it's an app you get on your phone, your mobile device, or a website you can go to on your computer. But what I like about Patreon is if you're listening to a podcast, like if you're on YouTube and you're listening to something, you close out the YouTube app, it stops playing, right? Unless you pay for the premium YouTube Red. Well, with Patreon, you just close your app, you do whatever else you want to do on the phone, it still keeps playing. It's simple, it's intuitive, it's an awesome app to use.
Yep.
And it literally would take 3 minutes to sign up to support what it is that we're doing. All right. By the way, Jim.
Yes.
Last question for you.
Okay.
One of the individuals who is greatly upset at me for giving them the correct gender pronoun.
Yes.
Was on a podcast in which the podcast host said, I would love to go on Northwest Liberty News. And they meant Montana Gazette Radio.
Right.
I'd love to go on and ask them why they hate us so much. Jim, do you hate them?
Of course not. I don't hate them.
Okay. I don't hate them.
No.
Just because we tell you things you don't want to hear doesn't mean that we hate you. In fact, it means that I love you, because if I didn't love you, I would just let you go to hell. But like Spurgeon said, if our friends intend on going to hell, let them jump over our dead bodies to do it.
Here's what I don't like, JD. I don't like good quote. I don't like, they can do whatever they, like I said, whatever they want to do. That's not, but I'm not their judge, but just don't try to put your, what you think is acceptable for you. Don't try to force me to be like you. I don't want to be like you. I'm going to do my own thing. So I don't hate them. I hate the fact that they try to force me to be like them when I don't want to, but that doesn't mean I hate them. I just don't like that type of tactics.
To be clear, I'm not asking you, Jim White, to be like me either.
No, of course not.
I'm not asking other people to do what I've done when it comes to correctly gendering people. But what she said was, I think this one was an actual she, I'm pretty sure. What she said was, I'd love to go on that program and ask why they hate us so much. Would you be open to the possibility of this woman coming on
sure. Of course, I've interviewed,
and explaining to her, we don't hate you at all. And we're open to communication with anyone that wants to talk.
Absolutely. Because I've said on this program before, JD, we can't live in a world where people are beating each other over the head with bricks because of the hat they're wearing, or because what they do inside their bedroom, even though we disagree with it. We have to have some sort of a common ground. Now, I don't agree with that lifestyle at all, but I'm not their judge. They're going to have to answer for that at some point. But in the meantime, we're supposed to treat them respectfully and love them and pray for them. And hopefully in my view, hopefully they'll change and go down the right path. But, hey, listen, whatever they do, it's not like, again, I'm not their judge. So, no, I don't hate these people at all. I'd be happy to have them on if they want to talk about stuff. I don't have any.
Jim, thank you for your openness to be willing to talk to anybody about anything. Because I think we all need to fight the concept of cancel culture as much as possible.
Yeah, of course. If you can somehow get back in touch with that person, I'd be happy to speak with them on the phone. And, I'm going to treat them like a guest. I always treat people on my show as like a guest because they are my guest, and I treat them that way.
With hospitality.
Of course. Yeah. Of course. I'm from the South, man. I can't help it.
Right.
All right,
which includes calling people Mr. or Mrs. sometimes.
I do. Still, people call me sir. I still use sir sometimes to people, and I don't know if they appreciate that.
Right.
But.
And by the way, I just want to throw this out there. Typically, if I think that they're going to have a hissy fit, I might call them by their real name instead of Mr. or Mrs. I don't mean to go out of my way to offend them. I just to be clear, I'm not going to live in the neighborhood of make-believe.
No, sure. I agree.
That's it. So anyways, Jim, thanks for having me on the program. I appreciate
you coming on, bro. Always great to have you on. Great discussion. And this is just, folks, it's going to be probably a little bit more, the Montana Murder Hornet's going to be like a little lighter, like you said. It's going to be, more
lighter, quicker, funnier.
Yeah, that type of thing.
Excerpts, funny audio excerpts, satire, serrated edge.
Great, good stuff. JD Hall, anything you want to say before we let you go? Anything you want to say in closing? Do you want to give a chance to talk about the gospel real quick?
Yeah, the gospel starts with the bad news. None of us are good. No one, including myself. I'm not good. I need a savior. We all need a savior, because we have not been who God has made us to be. I've not been who God has made me to be because he's made me in his image. And God is not a murderer, but the scripture says that being mad at someone in your heart is murder by God's definition in Matthew 5. I've done that. And James said, if you've broken one of God's commandments, you've broken all of God's commandments. So I've broken all of God's commandments. Some people break God's law some people have chosen not to represent God honestly by misrepresenting their gender. They're not good either, but neither am I. No one is. Here's great news. There is one man who was good. His name is Jesus. He was the second person, or is the second person of the Holy Trinity, born of a virgin. He came to live a life we should have lived. And he died for all men who would believe in him. And then he rose again from the dead on the third day, giving real meaning and purpose to us. And if we believe that message, we should repent of our sin, acknowledge it as such, and turn to Jesus Christ as our source of righteousness, because none of us are good in and of ourselves, including and especially me. And James, I'm going to throw you in there too, because I know you, or you.
Or me.
We need Jesus, and so do you and everyone else listening to this program.
Very well put, my friend, and I agree 100% all the way. JD Hall, always great to have you on here. We're certainly praying for you and your family as you face these trials. I don't think you're too worried about it, but still, it's annoying nonetheless. So if nothing else, it certainly is. So we do appreciate you being on the broadcast, man.
That's what lawyers are for.
That's right. We'll be in touch with you soon.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thanks, brother. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, folks, there goes JD Hall, one of the good guys here in the movement to take back this country. We do appreciate him being on the show. We've got some issues here with I think with the broadcast. It's hanging us up. I don't know if we were talking about subjects that were a little bit too controversial, but I think that our broadcast has been tied up. Let's see. Yeah, I think we're pretty well locked up here on Facebook. As a matter of fact, sadly, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if they on the fly they put us out because we were talking about stuff that's controversial. Anyway, it looks like we're locked up here. So we do appreciate you looking in here on the show. Thanks so much for joining us here today on the broadcast. You can support us by going to MontanaGazetteRadio.com, MontanaGazetteRadio.com, MontanaDailyGazette.com, and we're going to be coming up with the Montana Murder Hornet podcast here this weekend. Is I think going to be our first show. And we're going to be going to AM and FM very shortly. We're actually just finally waiting on some computer equipment right now, as a matter of fact, and we'll be going on AM and FM, quite a few locations and quite a few markets. So we're delighted for that. Thanks so much. I want to thank my guests, JD Hall and Dr. Al Ashevsky today for being on the broadcast. Again, please support us by going to MontanaGazetteRadio.com. Till next time, this is James White for Montana Gazette Radio saying bye now.